Right before she died of a drug overdose, I had no idea she was taking drugs.
It gets you addicted. I mean, I started out like any drug, just doing it once a week. Then it became twice a week. Then it became almost every night, smoking a little bit. Then it became waking up with it, doing it all day long.
I didn't get to see my daughter, but her dad did.
He was a heroin addict. He, had struggled with heroin for a long time, but he had been clean for a year.
I'm just thinking to myself, like, wow, why? Why did you drive?
I looked to the left and I saw like this white truck, and I couldn't see nothing. I said, I go, oh Jesus, like that, and it hit us.
You will be convicted of a felony if you're caught selling this stuff.
And what you don't really realize that you're putting your life in danger and everybody else around you in danger, and it's just not worth it.
It was 8 minutes from the time the officer left, and that my daughter was killed.
Broke my back at T12, severed my spinal cord, had a punctured lung, a torn diaphragm, and several broken ribs, and that's what left me paralyzed at the waist, and he got a speeding ticket. That's it.
Well, hi, folks. Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate you being here, and thank you for watching the premiere. Those of you that were part of this premiere that just finished. And here's Gina. Gina says, I would like to thank all of your support in watching that with me. It's an interesting thing. That was the first time for Gina to see the story. And she told the story, but she hadn't seen the edited story in advance. Usually our storytellers do. But Gina thought it would be better to watch it with some support. You guys. So thank you very much for being a part of it. Julie says, James Bonito, thank you for watching and being caring and different and not being a stereotypical male. Stereotypical? Come on. There's some bad dudes out there, for sure. But yeah, there's some pretty harsh women too. But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe he's not a stereotypical. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I had to leap to my gender's defense. So, what did you guys think? This is really our first domestic violence story. But it seems like such an important topic that it needs to be a regular series on our channel. And I hope that it gets a lot of attention because it's a topic that needs a lot of attention. In the beginning, we had a text message, a graphic that said that domestic violence, spousal abuse, stalking, that one of those events happens it's 12 million times a year in this country. And people don't want to talk about it. Hello, Star. Thank you for joining us. I am. We're doing more than one on domestic violence. We have the second one ready to go. Right, Julie? So yeah, it is a hard story. Part 2 is also hard. Different kind of hard. Crystal says my aunt almost died from being beaten at least once a week. It is very important to talk about, Marianne says. I totally agree. That is with a lot of the stories that we've done, the stories about fentanyl and the stories about cannabis-induced psychosis, even the stories about recovery, there is this stigma thing that goes on. But this domestic violence, that stigma runs so deep. It is such a difficult topic for anyone to address, for a victim to address. I'm sure a perpetrator, difficult for them too, I guess, but it isn't something anyone just wants to go down that road. It's difficult, but my gosh, it's so important. Crystal says, "Thank you, Gina." And I think everyone here feels that way. It is such a brave thing. Yeah, there is this feeling that, well, maybe somehow it's my fault. Gina talked about it in the story. That shame, that stigma, it is brutal. And I hope that this series will help to reduce that some. It does need to be talked about more. It needs to be talked about a lot. It needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be something where social pressure gathers and I don't know, not maybe there's probably no way to correct the abuser's behavior, but to make clear to those who are witnessing it as children that it is not normal and it is not okay. More domestic violence stories. I have so much respect for what you do. I watch every episode. Thank you, Willa. Black Rain, thank you for bringing awareness. Gina is a hero. Gina is most definitely, absolutely a hero. Lisa says generational abuse makes too many women think it is normal. Yeah, it's just, there is a thinking that you just have to live with it, or it's the best you can do, or it's too embarrassing to try to explain to anyone. There's a lot at work in the tortured thoughts of the victim. Bingo, Lisa, Gina says. It is not normal. Correct. It is not normal. It's not even It's not acceptable. There is no, and it's not even a man and woman thing. It's a human thing. It is not acceptable to abuse a person under any circumstances. Wow, Gina. That's a tough one to read. So, Gina, how are you doing right now? You saw the story. You have this wonderful group of over 20 people in this live chat. James says, "Let me tell you how brave Gina is. In my documentary film, she played the role of a narcissist. That must have been hard, but I see where she got her incentive and influence from." Yeah. Good answer, Gina. I feel good. I have many blessings and I'm doing good things. Viola says, "I did think so too. When I was younger, my siblings and I escaped into the military at the age of 17. Crystal says, "Gina is amazing and brave." Yes. Yeah, she definitely is. Thank you, James. We've got stories to tell. Everybody grows when someone shares a story. Everyone in the audience grows. The storyteller grows too. Gina says, "Thank you, Crystal." So, Gina, maybe I always ask when we have the storyteller in the chat, in the live chat after a premiere, I always ask the storyteller, what was the experience of sharing your story like? So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what that was like. Yeah, there's this weird delay, I believe. Glenn, you're so considerate of every subject that you handle. Thank you. Well, thank you, Marianne. I feel very blessed to get to do what I'm doing now. I can tell you, it's as odd as it seems to say out loud. The live events are like a nice break. And it is wonderful to get feedback on our work when we do these live events, hearing what the audience thinks, how it impacts the audience. I'm in such a sweet spot that we have no, thank you, Viola. We have no sponsors, no grants, no funding of any kind other than what comes from the advertising on YouTube. And so that's a little scary, but at the same time, that means we are only accountable to the storyteller and the audience. And that is very much living the dream to me. Gina says, "Sometimes my past doesn't feel real and that doesn't feel right. It's a part of me. When I tell my story, I get to feel like a whole person." Wow, you are a whole person, an awesome person, and a brave person. So what else struck you guys about the story? What stood out to you? Hey, Kristen says back in 2004, One needed 12 recorded video accounts of the abuser attacking you before the police would take your case to help you. That's crazy. That sounds a little bit like what Gina experienced when she went and talked to that lawyer who said you don't have any bruises. Lisa says, Gina, I know you've been forever changed by this horrendous experience, but I'm glad you regained your spark, claimed your strength, and are using your life story to help others. That's a big deal. There's really a significant part of healing in helping others. Not necessarily by being involved in this, but in helping others, whatever kind of way. That even if the way you help others doesn't have anything to do with the experience that you're recovering from, if you're a victim of domestic violence and you can and you do something like go serve at a soup kitchen, or you get involved with some pet shelter, it's still a part of that recovery process. Pat says, Gina, maybe you disclose in the next part, but if it's not jumping ahead, where's the guy now? Yeah, she kind of knows where he's at. And Gina says, I recommend reading the Bonobo Sisterhood Revolution Through Female Alliance to everyone. Marianne, in 1997, I went to the police and he was immediately arrested and then went to court. Gina says that her abuser has been in and out of jail, unemployed, and miserable. His sister keeps her posted. Amen, Lisa. By being accountable and helping one acknowledge they can be helped to get out of the Crystal says, I'm still hand shy and my husband has never hit me. My uncle was a horrible person, though. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. I think everyone has some sort of trauma. Some experiences that were painful one way or another. And how we process that is part of who we are, what our identity is. And Gina says, I'm sorry. So what else? There's a definite I guess you hear the dogs. There's a I think that there is a need for this series, but there is not There's not a lot of resources for stories that we're finding. Hello, Renee. Welcome. Sometimes we can grow stronger in the places that we were broken. That makes sense. That's kind of profound. House, changing locations to get safely, to get grounded emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally, to share one story helps lessen the burden. Yeah, everybody grows when you share a story. There's a healing thing to it. Don't you think, Gina? After the interview, it seemed like there was a little bit of almost like a high to how you felt, how I felt. We had I can tell you guys we had to stop in the interview because I just I don't think Gina needed a break, but I did. Doesn't usually go that way, but I had to stop. I went over and I stood next to her and I took a knee, and I remember telling her quietly that there's good guys out there too. I remember that. Viola says, I have grown stronger from brokenness. Yeah, for sure. I think that's where we do most of our growing is how we deal with adversity, trauma, challenges. If everything is easy, you don't you don't grow from the easy stuff like you do from the challenges. Right? There's an expression that experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And our experiences make us who we are. So yeah, the pause was a cool moment, I thought. Gina says, thank you for the pause. The interview felt like a purging of misery, flushing out a wound. Yeah. Yeah, it did. And so you guys, I hope that all of you guys are able to catch part 2 tomorrow night. Starts at the same time. Part 2 is shorter than part 1. It is, I want to say, about 26 minutes. This first part was over 50 minutes. And but part 2 is brutal too. Kristen says, what a gift you have, Glenn, to pray aloud and showing healing through praying together, even being on your knee to show reverence to the Most High God. Well, thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Well, I hope you can make it too, Crystal. If you can't make it, once the premiere is over, it's live and available on our channel. It is, I can have a look at where this story is at right now. You have a 5-year-old. Tomorrow will be at the same time as today. Whatever time that is where you're at. It'll be at 7 o'clock Central Time, just like today. And so at 7:30, we'll be here again That's the plan, unless Publishers Clearinghouse calls or something. But that's the plan. Where am I? Right here. So far, this story has been viewed by over 400 people. They get counted whether they watch the whole thing or not, but that's where it's at, over 400 people, and that's great. So what else does anyone have? We'll just put Gina on the spot here because I know she's good for it. Does anybody have any questions for Gina? Yeah, isn't that cool? There's other people watching it right now. They didn't see the live, but they're watching it right now. There are two in my house, so okay. Well, yeah, it's the number doesn't consider the fact that more than one person could be watching at the same time. So, Julie, we can talk about that. I'll just tell that. Sorry, I get distracted. I hear a ding. You just told her. I watched it this morning and a second time live just to view the comments. Yeah, I've seen it a few times now, and it still really holds my attention. What did I miss? Vicky J, it blows my mind that a full-grown person would stay with a person they were hit with someone. Vicky then really doesn't fit with the kind of discussion we're having here. I can tell you, but Gina is totally right. You're lucky, and it is. Wow, I am just. I'm behind, but yeah, when you're in the situation, you believe those kinds of things that you get told, that thinking reasonably outside of the situation, outside of the trap that you're in, you wouldn't consider believing. It's a terrible spot to be in. We could probably get a therapist to join us in a live event and talk about that further. Lisa said, I can't be on the premiere tomorrow, but we'll definitely watch later. Knowing the story doesn't make it any easier to hear. Love you and so very proud of you, Gina. So I guess y'all know each other, I'm guessing. So where are we at? Trying to keep track of what's going on here. So if anyone had any comments that I managed to miss, please repeat them. Because, this thing keeps scrolling by, and eventually your comments get lost as new ones come in. All right, sorority sister. Well, that's cool. I don't have any sorority sisters. Just worked out that way. Lisa says this is a classic abuse cycle. Of course, you believe it, are afraid of the alternative. You think you're worthless and put up with things you never think you would. And that's one of those things that really stifles people from talking about their experiences, is they get to that point where even when they get out of it, looking back, they think of how crazy it seems when their mind isn't in that prison. They think of how crazy it all seems, and it's difficult to talk about. But people talking about it is part of what makes awareness happen. And the more people are aware, the more likely it is to prevent it from happening as much. But yeah, we do have a couple of therapists we can call on, and maybe we can do something where we address domestic violence, and we have a counselor on the live with us, where we do that 2-window thing, and we can make that happen. Gina says, someone told me I must have liked it that since I didn't leave. Words like that cause more shame. That's just a stupid thing to say. Like a profoundly stupid thing to say. Leaving isn't always an easy thing. That especially if you're afraid for your safety, you focus on keeping yourself safe. Viola says, don't allow those words to cause more shame. No. And Viola's right, because that's someone else's ignorance, and someone else's ignorance isn't your fault. So recognize that they're just ignorant, that they don't understand just human behavior like they should. People say profoundly stupid things when they don't know what to say. Yeah, I can tell you, I've been seeing a lot of profoundly stupid comments with our cannabis-induced psychosis series. A lot of people defending cannabis, though. The series is about awareness. It's not a campaign against anything. Gina says, you're right, Viola. I have grown since then, and I've learned to love myself. You can see that when you talk to her. Not just the interview part, but just having a conversation afterwards. I have a picture somewhere of the two of us standing outside of the venue where we shot the interviews. Fleeing the abuser is dangerous. Guns get drawn, violence gets greater. That's right, Kristen. That's a big thing. That I can imagine that being in a circumstance like that, and you start trying to plot your escape, because it is an escape. You have to take into consideration all of those variables that could lead to you getting hurt or killed. Sorry, I'm getting messages from, they could even be coming from in the chat here, as if I'm not live. So anyway, separation assault is the known phenomenon of an abuser hunting down their victim to exact revenge. Kristen says, we all love you until you learn. Says, we will love you until you learn to love yourself. Old timers in AA used to say at group recovery meetings. And Pat says, that was my concern when I asked Gina earlier where this guy was now. Yeah, I think it's great that Gina pays attention to where he is. But it also seems like Gina recognizes that he is wrought with his own demons, and that's more compassion than he deserves, which is part of the beauty of compassion. Lisa says, do we want to admit how many years we've known each other, Gina? Oh my gosh, Lisa, how old are you? How many years we've known each other? And yes, I feel guilty for having lost touch and not being aware of what was happening to help. And just in the course of hearing Gina's story, I had this feeling like, holy cow, where was I? And I just met her. But there's this feeling like, man, I wish I could have done something about this. Lisa, you have nothing to feel guilty about unless you say our age. Wow. Okay, now there's some real pressure. I had 3 college men help me escape my abuser and move away to safety. So I really want to hammer home the point that 3 college men helped. That's a big deal. Viola says, oh, y'all have a beautiful reconnection, Lisa and Gina. Lisa says, knowing the stats of how much danger the person is in immediately after leaving the abuser makes it hard to even encourage someone to leave. Yeah, that's gotta be a giant motivator that prevents people from trying to leave, is that fear of what happens if they get caught. Gina says that Lisa's been helping her edit her memoir, and she's amazing. Yeah, I kind of get that sense about Lisa. She is wonderfully supportive of Gina, and Lisa is also seems very motivated on her own. Kristen, I was in music school at the time. at the time when the 3 college men escaped my abuser. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You saying they're musicians? I don't know. I have such a wonderful time talking with you guys. We've been here 40 minutes, and I see we haven't seen a couple of the usual suspects here this time. It's different because we saw a different kind of story. So yeah, we saw a different kind of story, and so it's going to draw different audience. And it appears there's a few people in the audience that have known Gina longer than me. Yeah, no Brad, no Carla tonight. I don't, at least haven't seen them yet. You know, Brad could be having a nap. They were studying other men. Okay, I understand. It's awesome. We hear we hear stories about strangers helping people a lot. Like the part in Gina's story, the part where she's sitting on the beach waiting for the sleeping pills to kick in. And that stranger comes along and offers to help her. And then there's that boss. The boss, that is awesome. That's not a stranger, but that's a boss doing something way outside of the typical boss role. And so it could be that maybe Brenda and Brad and Carla are all hanging out somewhere. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But since it's a different topic, it could be it just wasn't for them. What happens often in these chats is there's this wonderful group. Look who's here. Stalking. Holy cow, Brenda. Just stalking. Well, I'm glad you're here. Kristen says cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome is what can happen while detoxing cannabis. This is quite frightening. Vomiting, stomach cramps, insomnia. Yeah, that is really scary. It seems like the possibility of having to deal with that is a pretty substantial deterrent. I had a friend in the early 2000s. I haven't talked to him in years, but he developed hyperemesis. They didn't connect it to cannabis, but as 20 years ago, and he was definitely a pothead. So maybe. Hello, Renee. Glad you're here. Hi, Crystal. Renee. Renee, you got the love and the hug, and then the other love thing, and then I don't understand this one. This emoji. I don't know what's like. I don't know. It's my fault, I'm sure. So, but glad you're here, Brenda. Holy cow. It is 45 minutes. So you've been stalking, just sitting there quietly and drinking it in. Crystal, yes, I lived it the first 16 years of my life. A few triggers still lingers. So glad Gina's story didn't involve gun violence. Kristen says, you educated me about CIP. Then I found this CHS. Kristen, I don't know what CHS is. Renee says, I stay blessed. It's important to embrace that, to believe that you do, regardless of what's going on, that believing that you're blessed has such powerful healing. It affects everything in your life. How you interpret it. That it's really as simple as thinking positive. But what is can hyperemesis? Oh, I understand. Yeah, I wasn't aware of it until we started doing the cannabis stuff. Doing the cannabis stories, not doing cannabis. Can mean praise. Okay. I feel when other people have gone through something like that, I feel like I've missed a message. So, are there any other stalkers out there just hiding and not not chiming in, not participating in the chat like Brenda was? Anyone? What? Gosh. Okay, that's going to get complicated. I feel when other people have gone through something like that. Awesome, Brenda, coming soon. Hugs. Here's a hug for everyone. I'll take that. Okay. Y'all are just going all chick now. So Kristen, you've seen some of the cannabis induced psychosis stories. Wow. Sorry, I was just looking at the news up there a little bit. We are getting close to time to wrapping it up here. So I have lost track. I got too much going on here. So the cannabis series. We have a lot of stories to work through on the cannabis series. And it has a severe stigma issue as well. Really severe. There's a lot of people who don't want to identify, who don't want to use their names. Squeeze a hug. Oxytocin feels so good. What? Remember to hit the like button. Absolutely. We need more likes. We have over 20 people in this right now, and we only have 10 likes. There's been over 150 people through the live who watch a little while and then move on, and only 10 likes. For marijuana, for what? I don't know what you're asking, Crystal. We have a series about cannabis-induced psychosis, and we have this series about domestic violence, and we have a series about fentanyl poisoning, and we have a series about addiction recovery, and we have one about human trafficking. So we have a few. Maybe you could do some anonymous filming and shadow out their faces and voices. Yeah, we've done some of that. And we can disguise voices and make them unrecognizable. Oh, geez, just the stuff. Some of the messages that I get. So, is there anyone in the audience who might have some other questions that you'd like to ask before we move toward wrapping this up? We have been here for over 50 minutes. Yeah, we get that a lot. We get a lot of comments from people that are really surprised about the CIP stuff. That it is not as uncommon as you might think. At least that's what emergency room physicians have told me, a couple of them. And so there's that. And some of it is a matter of degree. That I know that technically a panic attack is different from psychosis. But if it's just being diagnosed by a user, the term panic attack could possibly be inaccurate, be hiding what it really is, that it recognize it instead of recognizing that it really is psychosis. There's also a cannabis use disorder and the hyperemesis issue. I'm hoping we all know what emesis is. But it is about time to wrap it up for tonight. It has been quite a long day here in Houston. And but I want to remind you folks about tomorrow's premiere, part 2 of the story. Crystal, what's the oh my goodness for? What I miss? I lost track of something. I think, I don't know. Remember, what you take for granted, someone else is praying for. God bless you all. That is Brenda's wonderful closing statement every time she's with us. Hyperemesis is basically throwing up all the time, vomiting all the time, vomiting, stomach cramps, issues like that. it's such a terrible, debilitating thing. And that has been definitely connected to marijuana, to cannabis. Yes, Crystal, it is scary. I'm learning as I go when we develop this series, and there is a lot that I'm finding out that I didn't know. Um, I'm I'm trying to yes, Brenda, a fancy word for puking. Yeah. So we're trying to find some other perspectives to include in the cannabis thing, because we hear from so many commenters who are adamant in their defense of cannabis. None of them are all that open about talking about it on camera, though. And there's some other funny things about the comments that come from people defending cannabis. One is that they tend to, instead of making one post that has 5 or 6 sentences in it, they'll make 5 or 6 one-sentence posts right in a row. And that just happens now and then, but it seems to happen a lot more often with people who are defending cannabis. Another thing that happens a lot is the comment will be something that's diverting the attention to something else. Oftentimes alcohol is some sort of comment that says, yeah, but what about alcohol? Alcohol is way worse. Well, it's not about alcohol. We have a series about impaired driving that is virtually all about alcohol. But everybody knows about the dangers of alcohol. And when someone talks about the dangers of alcohol, nobody steps up and defends it. Nobody says, no. But with weed, yeah, it's different. It's different. So that's another thing. Diversion. Yeah, but what about alcohol? Or what about alcohol and nicotine and or cigarettes and that kind of thing. And then the other thing I've noticed about commenters who are defending cannabis is that their comments are way more likely to contain misspelled words. It's just a fact. I made a comment about that once before, and got a lot of flack for that, which I thought was kind of funny. And but it's a thing. If you go to the cannabis stories and you look at the comments that are from people who are disputing whatever the story says, you'll see. There's things about the comments from those folks that are just a little bit less coherent. Maybe it's just me. Kristen says, one thing I took away from the CHS is that the cannabis smokers were not eating before smoking. Well, some of the stories, we still have a lot of stories to work through to publish, but some of the stories the CHS sets in over time, and it's muscle cramps and vomiting, and they will stop using, and the problem will still continue. So that's the first that I've heard about a connection between eating or not eating and it inducing hyperemesis. I don't that doesn't seem likely, but I don't really have any solid information to base that on that I'm remembering right now. But this hyperemesis issue is something that goes on for weeks or months or longer. So, anyway, we have been here over an hour now, and it's going to be about time to wrap it up. I appreciate you guys being with us. Good to see you, Brenda and Kristen, Gina, Julie, and Crystal, and Alba, and Pat, and Brenda, and Renee, and all you guys. I'm very grateful for you to be a part of this. This is kind of a high point to me to get totally immersed in something. It's like editing, except I get immediate feedback. I get to hear what you folks think. I get to hear opinions about whatever story we just watched. And so it's a wonderful, positive experience for me. So I'm very grateful for you guys. So, and I see we got a lot of hearts from Crystal there. That's awesome. So I want to remind everyone as I cue up the closing credits. I want to remind everyone that we're always available for you guys, and we're always glad to do whatever we can to help. Kristen says, "I've been away from the recovery rooms. This new information about CIP and CHS is enough to make me want to go back to my AA women's home group to share this info with the public." Yeah, it is interesting to watch how this information is received, and we are still working our way through it. Anyway, Pat says, "Gina's taken up almost 4 hours of my day today, and she's coming back for more tomorrow." Yeah, a small price to pay, Pat. Tomorrow's story is a different kind of brutal, but it's brutal. And you really need to see part 1 to get part 2. Even though we recorded the 2 interviews out of order. Anyway, Brenda says, "Pat, then you are the luckiest guy on the planet since Gina chose to spend so much time with you." There you go. That's good. That's a good one, Brenda. All right, folks. So we are going to wrap it up for now. But like I was saying before, I want to remind you guys that you can always reach out to us. We're always here and available. So you can email us at info@texas-pictures.com. You can find us on Facebook under my name and under the company name Texas Pictures. We are also on TikTok, and there is our website, texas-pictures.com. And on our website, there's information about how to share a story, how to have a storytelling summit, and there's also a link to our merchandise, Texas Pictures t-shirts and coffee mugs and all of that cool stuff. And on our website, there's more information about us. There's a mailing address and even a phone number. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow evening.